Greg Johnson, Ross Sugarbush, CDL, Wisconsin. Gonna pull 3/16 lateral line today. Got a 3/16 tool. My end of the line hook. Put that in. Hand that back to Kellen. And go out and get some taps.
All right, so on the 3/16 line, we're generally looking to have 15 to maybe 20 taps. The theory behind that is to have vertical drop. Our demo here doesn't have a ton of vertical drop, and we're only going to have 5-6 taps on it, but we're just kind of trying to show how the fittings go together and what a guy needs to do. So Greg went to his end of line tree, he hooked around it. Now he's just pulling tension on the line as he's working his way back. So when he gets to the front here, I'm going to cut the line a little bit short, maybe a foot. And then I'm going to use what we call a lead connector. So the lead connector is a splice with a hook on it. So what that hook will do is that will hook to the wire. So that's going to take all the tension of that line to keep it elevated in the air. So I'm going to hook my line back into my 3/16 tool. I'm going to insert my hook. You always want to try to bury both of the barbs anyways, so your tubing should be all the way buried at the end of the fitting. So now that I've got my lead connector down, I'm going to take it and I'm going to hook it to the wire. So now that we're attached to the wire, there's different options. For this particular setup, we're going to go into a main line. There are other options of just running 3/16 runs without any main lines. So from here, if you were going to run without a main line, what we like to do is have a wire anchor going across 2 trees, so we can take our lead connectors and hook to that wire. So that'd be our main point. From there, we could have a tank sitting down that a chunk of 3/16 could drop down into. The other options now that we are using a main line would be to use a saddle. So a saddle or a spin seal. So from there, we take an 18-inch piece of pipe. And we're going to put that on the other side of our lead connector. Again, covering both the barbs. So now the next step is then we're going to be putting in a saddle or multi-fitting here. The last thing, like I said before, if you wanted to have a tank or something like that, you could have a longer piece of tubing, extend it off, dropping right down into a tank. Okay, so now that we're at the end of the line of our 3/16 run, Greg has went ahead and put the end of the line hook here. I'm going to use, it's called an end of the line tee. So these are generally going to be blue in color, just to know that they're the end of the line tees. So this tee actually is going to be dead-ended on this side. So my drop line will be live and my left side will be live to drive sap down the line. I'm going to insert it right here. So that way, when I go to my drop, it's going to come from my drop down to my tubing and head down the line. That way everything on the back that wraps around the tree is going to be dead. So if there were a squirrel or anything to come down and chew on it, it's not going to affect any of my performance. So I'm going to take my two-handed tool. This is a drop line cutter. Set of vice grips on it. I'm going to clamp it in to my tubing. It's got a cutter on it. I'm going to cut it. Open that up. I'm going to take my tee, and you always have to make sure that you insert these end of line tees the right direction because there is that dead end on it. I'm going to put that in. Squeeze it tight. Release, and that one's ready to go. So this particular tee that we put in it's a tee with pin. So the theory behind that pin is you can take your tubing, stick your tubing over the pin, and that's how you can store it for off-season storage.